Hello, I'm David Leadbetter, and welcome to my first in a series of instructional golf tapes. Well, hello, Bill.
Hi, David. How are you?
Good. Great to see you again.
Nice to see you. Good shot, David.
Hello, Bill. How are you? Nice
Fine,
to see you again.
Nice to see you.
You know, when you're going to change your swing and go into new ground, so to speak, you really have to put a lot of trust in the person that you're going to work with.
Nick, we have an interesting location for an instructional video.
Yeah, this is the kind of place that I'm sort of was familiar with before I came to see you, Dave.
Hello, I'm David Leadbetter, and welcome to Simple Secrets for Great Golf. Hello, I'm David Leadbetter, and it's a real pleasure for me to be with you once again. Welcome, I'm David Leadbetter, and it's a pleasure for me to bring to you From Beginner to Winner. You know, millions of
Well, amazing as it may seem, I've been making these instructional videos for 7 years. And given the 7-year itch, I think it's time to look back over the series and select the greatest tips that will help you, the golfer, whatever your handicap. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to break this tape down into 4 separate sections. Firstly, setting up to hit a great shot. Secondly, the swing itself, some thoughts and some drills to get you to make a great golf swing. Thirdly, some speciality shots. And finally, the all-important short game area. Although I'm sure all these tips are really going to help you, only use one of them at a time, all right? Now, who better to start us off on this tape than one of my more promising students, Nick Price, who will help us to get to grips with the grips.
Right, now, the thing that I see mostly with many players is the fact that they grip the club too much in the palm. Now, I've just hijacked this glove from one of these players that has a poor grip. I promise you it's not my glove. And we can see the wear up here, and that's simply because the fact the club is too much in the palm and there's a lot of motion, a lot of movement with the club during the swing.
Right.
And this is very, very common. And big problem is, unless you set your left hand, and particularly your left hand on the club correctly, you're not going to be able to use your hands correctly, not going to be able to get the wrist action right, and causes a whole host of bad shots. So let's have a look at your left hand, see how you position it.
Well, one of the things that I've always tried to do, David, with my left hand is to hold the club parallel to the ground right out in front of me here. I have the thumb going down the center of the shaft, a cup in the left wrist, and I can see 1, 2 knuckles.
Right, now let's just open this left hand and have a look where it is. And you can see it's across the palm, through that first finger here, and basically it is a palm grip, but it's also in the latter stages, or the lower part of the hand, in the fingers. So it's not purely a palm grip. And this will enable you, by gripping it in this position, and we can just see here, if I can just show the difference. So instead of having it running through there, it's now running there. It'll enable me to really get my wrist action working correctly. So important in a good golf swing.
Right.
What else do you feel? Do you feel any sort of pressure in maybe your last 3 fingers?
Well, I've always tried to grip it a little tighter in my last 3 fingers, and one of the reasons I come down the grip a little bit, not at the top here, is to make sure that I have these last 3 fingers on the club.
Right. Now the right hand, certainly the left hand's the most important, but the right hand, I see problems with many golfers who tend to grip it too much in the palm, and also the right hand's too far up the club. It's too short a grip, in other words.
Right, and what happens is, even though you may have a good swing, when you come in through to impact, the club face is going to turn because your right hand wants to go back to the square position, and it's going to close the club face. You're going to hook the ball. On the other hand, you might make a compensation and come through with your shoulders a little higher and hold on this way, and the ball is now going to go to the right.
Let's have a look at your right hand grip there and just see how you place it.
Well, as you can see, I've got it in the base of my fingers here, not too much in the palm like this, in the base of the fingers, and the lifeline here now comes over the top of the left thumb. And you can see the right thumb and forefinger, a little bit of a pinch.
Yeah, so see the right hand looks like it sits fairly long on the club, and the hands, the whole key with the hands is to let them work as a unit. Remember, they control the club face, maybe involuntarily so. In other words, you don't consciously try to control it, but wherever your hands are, they're going to control the club face. I think it's a good point to mention too, there are a lot of great players who do have maybe what we would call substandard grips, but they hit so many thousands of balls and they're so talented that they are able to sort of compensate for it. But basically, I mean, good golf begins with a good grip, no question.
Absolutely.
Let's check out the perfect posture drill. You know, posture really is the foundation of a good golf swing. And what I mean by that is getting your angles right at address. Learning to get your back straight, certainly your lower back. Getting into a position where it allows you to turn your shoulders consistently and maintain those angles through the shot consistently. We see so many players who address the ball poorly, and as a result, the club never gets back into the same position at impact on a regular basis. So understanding a little bit about geometry is really what it's all about. And that really means establishing those angles correctly at address. Now I have an excellent little drill here to actually help you to get your back in the proper position at address. Let me show you. What you do is you grab your golf club like this and put it behind your back and place it right down your spine. Hold the head with your left hand. So feel like the top of the club comes out somewhere near your head. Now you'll be able to feel in doing this that you can get your lower back nice and straight. Okay, we don't want to get it curved. We want to keep it straight as we can. The other key ingredient is to make sure that your neck is relaxed. So your chin is down slightly. We don't want the chin up. So your head is touching the club. You want to make sure that your head is down very slightly, and this gives you the proper position at address from which you can make a good turn. Getting this lower back nice and straight, keeping it, maintaining those angles through the swing will allow you to hit a lot of consistent shots. So periodically, just grab a club like this, put it behind your back, set yourself in this position, maybe feel a little pressure on your thighs right here and here, and now you're in a position where if you maintain that by simply just putting the club down in front of you, you're now in the great position from which to make a good swing. So do this regularly and you'll find that this will be a big key to help you to set up to the ball correctly every time. How to get yourself aimed and position the ball properly. If you want to hit your shots consistently to the target, you have to learn to aim consistently at the target. The fact of the matter remains that most people never really learn to aim the club properly. The thing that I see a lot is that people put their feet down first, trying to aim their feet at the target, and then put the club down and hopefully they're lined up. Well, very seldom are you if you do it this way. In fact, your feet are the least important of any aspect as far as lining up is concerned. The thing you have to remember is that the only thing that's aimed at the target is the club face. You get the club face aimed at your target, you get your body parallel to it. That means your feet, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, and also your eye line. So it's like a giant railway track. One side of the track is where the club face is, the other side of the track is where your body is. It's very much like hitting a 2-foot putt. You actually aim the putter face at the hole, and your feet appear to be left of the hole. And that's the way that you want to picture this. So always aim the club face first and then your body second. Now, in order to do this consistently, what you want to try to do is pick out a target just in front of the ball, as we term it, an intermediate target, on the line to the flag in this case. So you get behind the ball, pick out your intermediate target, and I have a little divot in front of the ball about a foot or so, and then in walking round, make sure you aim the club face at that intermediate target. Now, by doing that, and then getting my feet, my knees, my hips, my shoulders, and my eyes parallel, I can then be pretty much assured that I'm lined up at my target.
So let's see how we do. So aim the club face at the intermediate target. Get your body parallel to it. And then trust your swing. So there you have it. There's the secret. Aim the club face first and your body parallel to it. If you do that, you're always going to be lined up. Final element we need to discuss, Nick, is the ball position. And I think for good players, obviously we see a tendency at times maybe to get the ball a little too far back in the stance.
Well, it's something that we always try and do, and I find that the further the ball gets back in the stance, I'm going to find the club coming from the inside too much, and I'm going to hook the ball. The optimum for me is just inside the left heel, Dave, where I'll have it nice and comfortable, just in front of my armpit here, as you can see.
I just hang that there, we can see
that. And what this encourages me to do is to chase after the ball toward the target.
Right, also tends to help you to get shallow on it and take a nice shallow divot with your irons. And obviously with your woods, you want the ball forward anyway.
Right.
And you might just show us with a 3-iron, and then we'll just show you with a 9-iron.
Okay, there's a 3-iron. I'll go ahead and hit this one. And then as we come in with a 9-iron, obviously I'm not going to stand as far away because the club's shorter, but I'm going to keep the same ball position just inside my left heel. My right foot has come from a wide position into here, and I'm just a little closer to the ball.
It's amazing because it really does look like it's further back. It's just an optical illusion when you move your right foot closer.
That's right, and people often think that the ball should go further back with the shorter clubs, but I've always liked to keep it there.
Okay.
So here I am, just in front of the left heel. Feel very comfortable.
That's great. Nice shallow divot. Perfect. Now let's work on making a perfect swing. Well, that looks easy enough, but is it? Golf is a very difficult game, you know, as I'm sure you've found out by now. I think the most important thing I can really help you with at this stage is understanding what this golf swing's all about. Obviously, what we're trying to do is to create maximum speed with the club head and hopefully hit the ball on line at the same time as well. That's an important factor. Now, you know, many golfers go through their golfing lives without really understanding what it takes in order to make a good swing. There's lots of moving parts in the swing, as we can all see. The arms, the shoulders, the legs, the club head, the wrists, all these parts have to synchronize together. And the difference is between other sports and golf is the fact that in golf, certainly the ball is stationary. So we have to learn to make the correct motion. Now, if I just swung these keys on the end of this piece of string, this really is what we're trying to create. Centrifugal force. Create maximum speed and really get the club swinging. If I pick up this heavy weighted bar here, the same thing must apply. We've really got to get this swinging. That's our objective, learning to get it to swing. At the same time, get our body to help that action to take place. Now let's look at some computer 3D graphics and see what the swing's really about. Very interesting when you look at the inner workings of a good golf swing. There are a lot of moving parts. We have to learn to synchronize the body motion with that of the arms and the club. You'll see as this golfer makes his swing, his hips and his shoulders do a lot of the work, yet the hands and arms and club have to swing in harmony with the movement of the torso. This is what beginners and most golfers for that matter have to learn to do, to get the right synchronization between the arms and club and that of the body. Now if we look at this from a slightly different angle, look how his spine moves. It's continually rotating. His body weight moves back to the right and it moves through to the left. If you can learn to do this with fluidity, rhythm and good tempo, you're going to create a lot of club head speed and maximize that centrifugal force, which is going to give you long shots and on-line shots. So we can see all the moving parts, the way the body moves, the way the club moves. And understanding, having a good picture of the shape of the swing as far as the movement of the club is vital. I see so many golfers who really misinterpret the shape of the swing. They think it moves straight back and through, almost in a pendulum shape. You see others who swing it on a baseball or a tennis plane. Now certainly the shape of the swing is determined by the club that we're using. Okay, so when I address a golf ball, we can see, I'm using my lead bar here, it's angled, it's pitched down at this angle. Now it's important when we swing the club back or swing the bar back that it pretty much follows that same angle. We don't want to distort that position either here or here. The closer we can keep it to this plane, the better. So as we swing it back, you can see it almost follows the giant circle, back and around my head, back down, and then through the other side. You can see as I swing back, it moves slightly inside this line. If we call this the target line, where the tip of this bar is on, that will go through towards the target. It goes inside, up and around, down, up and around the other side. And as we can see in these 3D graphics, which really makes it very clear, you can see the perfect shape of the swing, the circular shape. These 3D graphics really point out the shape of the golf swing. It looks like a giant wheel tilted on its side. Now from a different angle, it's very plain to see the shape and the plane of the swing. It's neither horizontal nor vertical, somewhere between the two, pretty much the angle of the golf club in actual fact. You can see the club moves back slightly inside, up and around the golfer, and then retraces a very similar path coming down all the way through to the finish. It's imperative that you visualize the shape of this swing, because this plane is what allows you to hit consistent golf shots. One of the big problems in golf is that there are a lot of things to remember. And it's very difficult to go out and try to play this game thinking of a dozen different things. You get tied up in knots, you create so much tension, and one of the keys to play good golf is that you have to be pretty relaxed. So what the swing is all about is learning to create good habits. And one of the things that I really believe in are doing one or two little drills or exercises to help cement these habits, create the proper muscle memory whereby you can go out and play golf and not really have to think about your swing. So doing a few of these little drills, which I'm going to show you now, you can do them at home, that's the beauty of it. You can really develop a good understanding of your technique. Those of you that are beginners, you don't have any bad habits, so now you're creating some good ones. Those of you who've been playing for a while and have developed some bad habits, doing these little drills will help to change that. Now the first thing I want you to do is get a 9-iron in your hand, so it's a fairly lofted club, remembering that the higher the number of iron, the higher the ball will go. And normally about 10 yards between each club. So a 9-iron is going to go 10 yards, say shorter than an 8-iron. And all the way up through to about a 3-iron or even a 2-iron, it's about a 10-yard increment. But at this stage, what I want you to do is get a short iron in your hand, a 9-iron, and we're going to do a couple of little exercises. Now, first thing I want you to do is take two clubs and make a cross. Okay, right. Put one at right angles to the other. The one in this direction representing your target line. Now simply all I'm going to do is place this one in the middle. So basically it's positioned in the middle of my feet. So I'm going to stand very narrow for this little exercise. And all you're going to do is pick up a club with your right hand and grip it very lightly. One of the things we try to do is to really feel the weight of the club. Very important. You don't want to grip the club tightly. See, the golf club is a relatively light object. With my lead bar that I was swinging earlier, it tends to swing me and put me in the correct position. With this club being that much lighter, we've got to allow it to swing. We don't want to try to put it in position. Very important to let the club swing. See, what we have to really do ultimately here is to learn to make a swing and let the ball just get in the way of the swing. We don't want to attempt to hit it. That's where most golfers go wrong. We see a lot of golfers who, when they start, or who have even been playing for many years, who slice the ball. And the reason that happens is because they get to the top of the swing and they try to hit it. and help the ball up in the air. So there's a saying in golf, you have to allow the club head to do the work. There's a little bit of weight down at the bottom, and it'll do it itself if you let it. If you try to help the ball up in the air, that's where most problems happen in this game. So all I'm going to do is take the club in my right hand, pretty much put it down towards my fingers, and I'm just going to allow it to swing back and forward in a nice, easy manner. So it bounces on my right shoulder and then bounces on my left shoulder. You'll notice as I do this that it follows that plane that we described a little earlier, and it's a very natural motion. Right shoulder, left shoulder. Right shoulder, left shoulder. And as I'm doing this, you can see that my feet are just rolling just a little bit. We'll describe this in more detail as we go on, but just suffice to know as I do this, my feet just roll just a little bit. So very narrow stance, right shoulder, left shoulder. Now the club in the middle here is designed to show us pretty much where impact would be. In other words, where we strike the ball. So obviously you wouldn't want to come in like this. We wouldn't want to come in like that. Ideally, the club has to return to the position where it started at address. So remember, right shoulder, left shoulder. Just do this a few times. You can see how my right elbow is just folding down, and just a nice, easy little movement just to get the feeling of the weight of the club. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is swap hands, because understanding what each hand does in the swing, what each arm does in the swing, is very, very important. So now what I'd like you to do is to what we call choke down on the club. Go down the club a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 inches, nearly to the end of the grip. Hold it in your left hand, and this time just make little half swings going back and forward. Look at my watch. As I swing back, my watch points outwards and my thumb points up. So here we go. Thumb points up, point my watch out, and then swing it down. So my watch now is looking at the target as we swing through, and then once again up into this position with my thumb up in this direction. So we can see thumb up, thumb up. Now just doing this a few times, still swinging it on that same plane, on that same path. See, I'm not taking it out here or taking it in here. I'm just letting it swing naturally up and down, nice and easily, and there we go. Now this will give you a great sensation of what the arms are doing in the swing. Now, further to help you to understand this, we've got, it's not a squash racket, it's almost what they call a racquetball racket in America. And we put it on the end of a club, so I'm not quite sure what sport we're playing here, but we'll have a go. Now all I want you to do is picture the face of the racket, and you can see as I swing it back, it gradually just opens. It's like a door. It opens, you can see my thumb points up. As it comes down, it's now closing, hopefully be square at the point of contact, and then closes all the way through to this finish position. So pretty much what I'm doing back here is a mirror image through there. So you can do this quite nicely with a tennis racket. If you have a tennis racket lying around the house, very easy just to picture this shape of the swing, because that's what you have to get into your mind, the shape of the swing. And understanding that ideally what we have to do is return the back of this left hand squarely at impact. And that's how the ball goes straight. To add the speed in, which we'll get into in a little while, we just add a little bit of body motion. But understanding what your right hand is doing going back and what your left hand is doing going back and through, and then tying the two together is what you really need to understand in the beginning.
Now, the set, check and go drill.
I'm going to show you an ideal way to get in the proper slot at the top of the backswing. I've always felt that if you can get the club into a good position halfway back, the rest is pretty simple. All you've got to do is complete your turn, and you're going to be in the right place at the top, ready to come down. Now we call this drill the set, check and go drill. Basically, what we're trying to do is get you into the right position halfway back, check it, bounce it a couple of times, complete your turn, and then go ahead and hit it. You'll find it's an amazing way of getting in that proper position. You see, I find that most players, they have all their problems in the early stages of the backswing, to a point where, say, the left arm is parallel to the ground. People either take it inside, they pick it up, they do a number of things which really creates a whole lot of problems, and from there on the swing gets worse. So if you're in the right position halfway back, complete your turn, and hey, you've got your whole swing basically. So now What we've got to do is certainly get into a good position of address, get everything moving away together. You can see how my triangle formed by my arms and shoulders moves away together. When my hands are just past my right leg, which we call the 8 o'clock position, I like to feel a slight cocking of the wrists and make sure when I'm halfway back that my right arm is slightly above my left arm. My left arm's across my body slightly, not straight back or too far across, maybe 30 to 45 degrees across my body, and then making sure that the butt end points somewhere between the ball target line and my feet line. So that's getting the club what we call on the right plane. So simply checking this position, you can get into the right position halfway back. Now, hey, you're in a great spot there to complete the swing and go ahead and hit it. So it's a good exercise. Just want to practice this on the practice tee. Do this on a regular basis. Let's see how we do. Away together. All right, I feel good there. Now just simply bump it a couple of times, turn my shoulders. Simple as that. Set, check, and go. All you've got to do is get halfway back correctly, and the rest is easy.
The ball dropout drill.
For this drill, you're going to need another golf ball to assist you. When players are really playing well and hitting the ball solidly, they've got a good synchronization going between their arms and their body. In other words, the turning of the body and the swing of the arms really match up. They harmonize, and that's so important for good timing. With many good players, I see them get their left arm going too far across the body, which makes them turn too early, or otherwise I see a big separation between the arms and the body. So by using a golf ball in this fashion, you'll find that you can cure that problem. Now, all you do is simply stick it under your left arm like this. Okay, so you feel some pressure on your chest, just below your armpit here. Feel some pressure, and then as you swing back, the ball should then drop out as you swing your left arm to the top. You see, the key being is that everything works away together initially, and then the left arm swings up to the top into the correct plane. You don't want to get the club going around you too much, and so you don't want to lift it up in this fashion. So away together, allow the ball to drop out. And you can actually hit balls like this as well. It's a fun little drill. So let's see how we do. Simply place it under your left arm. Feels a little uncomfortable to start with, but you'll soon get used to it. Work it away and then let your left arm swing up. Now, if you can do that drill, you'll get your synchronization correct. So remember, away together, swing your left arm up so the ball falls out, and you'll have your timing right and a lot of great shots.
The club fallout drill.
Now, you may well ask what I'm doing here. Well, really what I'm doing is checking my plane. I have a little drill which really provides a simple test to see if you are in a good position at the top. A good position meaning that you've swung the club on a good plane, which really helps us with consistency. Now, a plane being the fact that you look at the club, see the angle of your shaft, and try to swing it pretty much on that line all the way back. It might get a little steeper than this original shaft looks, but the fact is, if you can approximately parallel that position at the top, you're in good shape. We see many players who swing it too far around them and have too flat a swing plane, and we see other players who swing the club too much up here. Now, this little drill, which we call the fallout drill, is very simple. You simply swing it back to the top of your backswing position, loosen your grip, let the club fall out of your fingers, and let the club fall and see where it touches. Generally speaking, it should just about fall on the tip of your shoulder. That will be a very good guideline for you. If you're too upright, if you let go of it, it's going to hit you on the head. If you're too flat and you let go of it, it's going to fall behind you. So try that little test. Swing it back to the top, let it fall out of your fingers, let it tap you on the shoulder, hopefully, and then you know your plane's in good shape. You can even do this with the aid of a mirror. If you can get that club in a good position or on plane at the top, as we say, you've got every chance of being consistent coming down into impact.
And there you have it. Get on plane, hit good shots. Going back a few years to the Simple Secrets tape, 2 excellent downswing keys. Swing from the top and swing to the finish. Now I'm sure a lot of you have heard the term hitting from the top. Now a lot of this stems from the fact that players don't really understand that it's a complete swing. A backswing and a downswing combined together. It's not a case of getting to the top and then coming down. We see so many golfers who lunge at the ball from the top of the swing, particularly slicers. They don't really release the club from the top of the swing, and as a result get into a position where they have to release the club early through the ball, and their club head passes their hands and they have a very weak hit. So that hitting from the top is really a bad problem. Now you can cure that quite easily by thinking in terms of, once you get to the top of the swing, of straightening the right arm as you change direction. So as you swing back, straighten that right arm. The straightening of this right arm allows the club head to catch up to the grip end as you approach impact. If you get into this position, as we see many great players, they look like they're coming into this position, into the ball into this position, but they then release the club. If you simply try to pull it down and get into this position, you'll be hitting it from the top. So remember, learn to swing from the top, not hit from the top. Straighten that right arm, and in actual fact, as you come down, you'll find that the club head is catching up to the hands, and you'll look like those great players look. So that will give you maximum speed through impact. So we want to learn to swing from the top. In actual fact, a little drill which I like people to work on, particularly slicers, is to tee the ball up and then just take a 7 or an 8 iron and hit a couple of shots, feeling that you're actually straightening the right arm subtly from the top of the swing. Keep moving as you're doing it, but it's a great way of changing direction. So let's see how we do. Now it might be a little hard to get used to at first, but that little exercise will really train you to get the feeling of swinging from the top. So when you get a ball down here and you're swinging it with 2 hands on, you'll get hopefully the same sensation. Now try that sensation of straightening your right arm and swinging it from the top. It's an easy thought. You can try it on the golf course, and I'm sure you'll like the feel of it. When I watch many amateurs hit balls, they look a little like this. They have a very short, restricted follow-through with no real acceleration through the impact area. You know, the key really is to hit good shots. Certainly you have to have club head speed through impact. If you have this short finish, there's no question that the club is decelerating coming into the ball. It's very much like a 100-meter runner. If they had to run to the line, they'd actually be slowing down before they got to it. What they try to do is explode through it. So the same way with the golf swing. You must try to make sure that you hit through the shot, not at the ball. Your job is not done once you've got here. Your job is only done once you've completed this position here. Now, what I'd like to actually see, in actual fact, is the club to actually bounce and hit yourself on the neck. If many players could do that, their thought would be to accelerate the club all the way to this position. They wouldn't just pose here. Now that means if they've done that, there's more acceleration where it counts, right where the ball is. So to help you to do this, why don't you tee up 3 or 4 balls in a row. You can either tee them up or just leave them on the turf, and then focus all your attention on swinging right through to the finish. You know, the difficult thing with the game of golf is that the ball is stationary. It should be easier, so we think. But you know, when that ball's stationary, we tend to put all our energy into hitting at the ball. With other moving ball sports, like tennis for instance, when we're moving to meet the ball, we will swing through it. But with golf, there is that tendency to slow down, and obviously as a result, the follow-through will be short. So now when you hit these 4 shots here, put all your attention on swinging through and accelerating through to the finish, trying to bounce the club on your neck as you do so. And step up to each shot there. Don't waste much time. Don't put any focus on any other part of the swing. Put everything into swinging through to the finish. It's also a very easy swing thought when you're on the golf course. So let's see how we do. So there you go. Now remember, when you're on the golf course, think, swing all the way to the finish. By hitting those 4 balls in a row, you can put all your attention into that area. Make sure you bounce the club off your neck or off your back, and you know then you've accelerated through the ball. Try it, I'm sure you'll like it. Well, here we are. Here's the meat of the subject, a tee shot. How are we going to get those extra yards? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of tips how to do it. Well, if there's any shot that good players or poor players want to know about, is a tee shot, Nick. They want to know how to hit it long and straight, because certainly this shot sets you up for your round more than anything else.
Well, first of all, just take care of that driver. It's been awful good to me the last 2 years, huh?
Oops, sorry. I haven't got any spikes.
I can see that.
Well, I think the big thing that I see with players setting up to the ball with a driver, a good example is somebody goes out and hits balls for an hour and a half, and they probably hit maybe wedges through, 5 iron, say, and then they get starting to practice with their driver, and they set up in the same way. So the fact of the matter is, you've got to learn to set up differently with the driver. Your weight pretty even, and you've got everything level here. In other words, you're not tucked in behind it enough. It's very difficult to really get behind the ball, because a lot of players I see who set up to it very much in a similar way to an iron, they tend to swing it back here and never get behind the ball, and they hang on their left side in a reverse pivot situation. So they're really using a lot of arms in order to propel the golf ball, or to propel the golf club in actual fact. So the key being, I think, is it all in the setup, learning to set up to it where you've got the ball forward, a little wider stance, a little bit more weight back on the right side, and if anything, the hand slightly behind the ball, because this enables you then to really wind up and get behind it. And also, I think a lot of people are worried about trying to keep their head too still on this shot, because certainly if you watch every great player, for the most part, especially with the driver, there's going to be a little bit of head movement off the ball to really get back into the right side. So that enables you then to really give the ball a good hit up the back of the ball, staying behind it. And remember, with the driver, we're trying to sweep it, aren't we, and hit it on the upswing.
One of the things that I've always liked about the driver, David, is it's the only club in the bag that you can put the ball on the tee. It's always clean ball, you got it on a tee, and it's always on a flat surface. So of all the clubs in your bag, this one should be the easiest one to become consistent with.
Yeah, that's right, in theory. So come on, let's go ahead and do it. Okay. I know you're a great driver of the ball, so show them how it's done.
Well, as you said, what I like to have is a little bit of my weight on the back foot. So I'm at about 60-40 here, even 55-45, but a little more weight on the right foot. And you can see, instead of having my hands in front of the ball like I would with an iron, or right above the ball, I might even have them slightly behind the ball here. You can see that my spine is just angled slightly off the vertical.
So and to the right, correct?
To the right, and that my shoulder tilt might be just a little more than I would have with my irons.
Okay.
And that's going to encourage me, when I get into the hitting position, to hit right at the back of the ball, almost on the upswing.
Okay, right. So you really feel like you get behind it when you're driving well, don't you?
Always feel like as you said earlier, I'm probably 2 or 3 inches behind the ball, or have moved off the ball. I feel like 2 or 3 inches, right, which will help me to get that full turn.
Right, so I mean, the whole key is to getting all that weight back into the right side.
All right, see what we can do on you.
Okay.
So a little more weight on the right side.
I think one of the things when a player gets a driver in their hands, they tend to create a lot of tension there, because they feel they should hit it hard. I mean, the key, certainly you do want to hit it hard, but you want to get behind it and trust your mechanics to create the club head speed, correct?
Right, you never want to hold the club too firmly, although it might appear at times that I hold the club really hard. My waggle looks a little hard, and that I actually have enough flexibility in my wrists to let the club set at the top of the swing.
Yeah, so you grip it fairly softly.
There's a good one.
Oh, that's great.
And again, I've got a good balance here. Final, always a good sign when you've hit a good shot is you have good balance.
If golfers were to be granted one wish, I bet it would be, I want to hit my tee shots longer. Well, this is certainly possible. What I see with many amateur golfers is they set up to a tee shot as if they're hitting an iron shot.
Basically, with an iron shot, you want to get the ball pretty much in the center. You want your weight fairly even and your hand slightly ahead. This allows for one to actually hit down on the ball and to squeeze the ball off the turf and take a divot. Now with a driver, what we're trying to do is in actual fact is try to hit up on the ball, sweep the ball away. Therefore, we need to learn to set the ball forward in our stance and our weight behind on our right side. Now here's a simple little drill to help you to get into this position. All you've got to do is find an uphill lie and position yourself in such a way as if you're trying to hit the ball on an upslope. So what I'm doing here, certainly I've got the ball position would be forward, but my weight is well on my right side, and I feel my right side set down and low. This will encourage me now to swing up on it, and that is so important if you hit good tee shots. Now, if we can duplicate that same sensation over the ball, we should hit some perfect tee shots. Okay, now I'm going to have the same sensation that I'm on the upslope. Sit up to it, ball forward, maybe my hands level or slightly behind the ball, a little more weight on my right side, left shoulder nice and high. Boy, that felt easy. Now you can do this on the practice tee, or you can even do it on the golf course. So if you're having problems with your tee shots, head for the hills. Well, you've hit a perfect tee shot. Now, the shot to the green. How to play great iron shots. From my videotape Simple Secrets, I'm going to show you how to do it. There's no better feeling in golf than a crisply struck iron shot. If you want to shoot low scores, you've got to make lots of birdies. And to make lots of birdies, you've got to be a good iron player. All great players throughout history have been great iron players. The fact is they're able to strike the ball solidly, but also control the distance that they hit the golf ball. Many amateurs that I see, they tend to hit the ball with a scoopy type of action, where the club head reaches the ball before the hands do. They're trying to lift the ball in the air, and this does not produce solid shots. You cannot control the distance, and the ball sort of hovers in the air. The key really is to make sure that when you make contact with the ball, that your left hand is ahead of the club head. Let me show you. At the point of contact, the left hand must be flat and leading that club head. This way you get the correct strike on the ball. You squeeze the ball off the turf and the ball takes off on a piercing trajectory. So one way you can actually work on this is with this little drill. Put the ball back in your stance and then with a short iron, hit what I would term a little punch shot, feeling that your left hand is ahead of the club head. You'll get the strike that you're looking for. Put another ball just opposite the ball that you're trying to hit. In that way you can determine where your divot starts, because your divot should be after the ball. Many players, the divot is actually behind the ball or underneath the ball. You've got to make sure that your divot starts after it, and it will be if your left hand is ahead of the club head as you make contact. So try a couple of these little shots there. Ball back, hands forward, and just a little three-quarter punch type shot. Now you can see my divot was ahead of the ball. Let's try one more. Now the feelings that I had with that little punch shot were that my left hand was ahead of the club head and my left wrist was flat and bowed. You can see it here. No way must you get your left wrist in this position through impact. Remember, impact's a moment of truth. A lot of players have some strange looking swings, but to hit solid shots with your irons, you have to have that left hand ahead of the club head at impact. Now, if you can transfer that same feeling and image to the full shot, just watch how crisply you strike your iron shots. Well, there you have it. The secret for good iron play: make sure you get your left hand ahead of the club head at impact. Unfortunately, golf doesn't always go according to plan. Some bad shots tend to sneak in here and there. For instance, your slice, how to get rid of it, and some other speciality shots which, if you learn to play, will really help your scoring. The slice. It's a curse which afflicts millions of golfers all around the world.
And I'm going to show you how you can get rid of that slice with a very simple cure. Right, now what happens when you slice the golf ball, the fact is the club is coming down on too steep an angle, on too much of an out-to-in path with an open club face. So the club is sliding across the ball and putting this type of spin on it, this clockwise spin, which sends the ball, starts the ball to the left and then spins it off to the right. It's a very weak shot, there's not much power attached to it, and all in all, it's a shot that you want to try to eliminate and try to create more of a draw shot. That gives you more distance. Good players fight draws, they don't fight slices. Right, now, let me just hit this slice and you'll see exactly what happens. Now there's a slight exaggeration, but certainly I see some swings like that when people come to see me. And what happens, we can see the divot is across. In other words, the divot looks left of the target. So that's a telltale sign. Now, to get rid of this problem, all it requires you to do is find a slope where you can put the ball above your feet. So let me show you. Now, the reason you need to find a slope like this is because it promotes the exact opposite of a slicing swing. Basically, what it does, it allows you to have a shallower angle into the ball as opposed to a steep angle. It gets the club approaching the ball more from the inside on an in-to-out type path as opposed to out-to-in. And as long as your forearms rotate over one another as you swing through, that allows the club face to be square or slightly closing as opposed to open. So you can see it's the exact opposite. So making a few swings with the ball above your feet and hitting a few shots will help to promote the right sensations. And that's what you want to feel when you're out on the golf course. So let's hit a shot here. You'll see how the club swings around and around, very much like a door opening and closing. That's the image you want to have. It opens and closes on a much shallower angle than you would if you were slicing the ball and had the divot going to the left. In this case, the divot should actually, if anything, probably look slightly to the right. But let's see, we should hit the ball fairly cleanly from this lie and produce a draw. And there we go, a big draw. Now, if you practice making swings off this type of slope and even hitting shots, if you do this on a regular basis, when you go out on the golf course, you have that same sensation and you can wave goodbye to that slice. Let's look at uphill and downhill lie situations, Bill. Why don't you set up to the ball?
No, it's always been uncomfortable for me to set up to a shot like this.
Well, naturally, the tendency is one wants to lean into the slope to secure one's balance. So what you have to try to do is set yourself parallel to the slope. So take your address position, put the ball in about the middle of your stance, and set yourself up in such a way that you feel your right side is quite a bit lower than your left. See, now you've got this tilted down, and in actual fact, now you're parallel to the slope. What this will allow you to do is to actually swing up the slope and allow the club to get through. The tendency is if you lean left, you swing into the slope and you really don't get any speed. Remember, from this lie here, it's very difficult to get your weight through, so you must keep the club swinging up the slope.
Okay.
One further point to remember, Bill, you must take a little bit more club, because when you're on an elevated lie like this, the ball goes up in the air. So if you're going to hit a 5-iron, you need to hit a 4-iron. So just take that into account as well.
All right.
Go ahead and hit a shot. Good, that was solid. You really got through that one nicely. Now let's look at the downhill lie, shall we?
Okay.
This shot, Bill, is the same but different. The tendency is to lean back into the slope to maintain your balance. All right, so what I want you to do is set up to it now and try to get yourself as parallel as possible to the slope and put the ball back in your stance this time, just to make sure you make contact with the ball first.
Okay.
Now you can see now you're getting your body in a situation where it's now parallel. Your right side feels higher than the left, and you're in good shape here now to swing down the slope and to make good contact. Finally, Bill, don't forget to take a more lofted club. From this lie, the ball tends to fly lower and a little further. Okay? So if you're going to hit a 5-iron, now you hit a 6-iron.
Okay.
Excellent. You see, balance is so crucial from these lies. So you set yourself up right, and they're no problem. Here's a nasty one. The ball sitting way below your feet. You know, the key really for any shot like this, Bill, or any slope for that matter, is balance. Okay, so now let's look at this one. The tendency is with a slope like this for the ball to follow the shape of the slope. In other words, the ball should move left to right. So first of all, we have to allow for that and aim a little left of our intended target. Okay, so the important thing is we're going to try to get good contact here. So we don't want to try to get too ambitious, so I'm using a 4-iron here. Wouldn't want to use a wood or a 2-iron or anything. But now, to get down to it, what I need to do is widen my stance. Okay, get my stance a little bit wider, especially with my long legs, so I can actually get down to the ball. I'm also going to try to hold the club up right at the end as far as I can. Gives me a little bit more length to the club there. Okay, now, naturally, with the ball below my feet, the tendency is to swing the club on a very upright plane. So I've got to accommodate that by actually having the ball fairly far forward in my stance. Okay, and finally, the last thing you want to do is to really address the ball more off the toe, because the tendency is when you swing for the club to work outwards. So we've got to ensure that we don't get the weight going towards our toes and keep the weight back here and, say, addressing it off the toe. Even if we move out a little bit, we'll still strike the ball out of the middle of the club face. Okay, so let's see how we go doing this. Right, so maintaining balance is very important. I feel my hands and arms working a little bit more. Obviously, my body's in a very restricted position.
Well, that's great. Is the opposite true for the ball above your feet?
Well, let's go and have a look.
Okay.
Okay. Well, there we are. All right, we'd be probably upset if it finished there because we'd expect it to roll back down the hill. But anyhow, so what we're going to do now, obviously, we've got a slope in this way here. So the ball, in actual fact, is now going to follow the slope. So it's going to move right to left in the air. We have to allow for it, aim a little to the right. And what I'm going to do, it's going to certainly flatten my swing plane. So I'm going to choke down on the club now to help to facilitate a flatter swing plane. I'm also going to put the ball back in my stance slightly, because obviously a flatter swing plane means I'm going to strike the ball a little bit earlier in the arc. So a little further back in the stance there, Bill. And then finally, what I want to do is to address the ball this time a little bit more out of the neck or the heel of the club, because the tendency is as you swing to sort of move back down the hill. So the other important thing is just to feel that your weight stays forward on your toes so you don't fall away from it too much.
Okay.
Okay, and then once again, try to swing smoothly. There won't be too much body action, more hand and arm type of motion, and make a nice smooth swing.
Well, it's a good shot there.
Well, we don't always get these type of lies, Bill, but when we do, we have to know how to handle them. Well, bad luck, Bill. Here we are on a par 4, and you've hit it in the rough off the tee. So we've got 3 different types of lies to contend with. One where the ball is sitting down a little bit, not too bad. This one's not that good, it's sitting down somewhat more. And that one's terrible, it's buried. All right, so we've got 180 yards to the green, and here what I'd like you to do is think about taking a 5-wood. You know, most modern 5-woods, they have these little rails at the bottom. In actual fact, a fairway wood will actually slide through the grass fairly easily, a lot easier than it will a long iron. So take the 5-wood out and let's see what you can do with it.
Okay.
Now remember, you're trying to sweep the ball away, so just make sure as you swing back that you really brush the grass. Hold the club slightly off the ground. I always advise you to do that if the ball's sitting up a little bit, because if you hold it down, the ball can actually sink down further into the rough.
All right.
Okay, so
Do I play it just normal?
normal position there, yeah.
Right.
Maybe choke down just a little bit on the club. Okay, off we go. Good. Now that came out really well. You see how the club actually slid through the rough?
That was amazing.
Okay, you wouldn't have thought of that, would you?
No, never would have.
All right, now let's look at this lie here. Now what I'd suggest you do, obviously you're not going to get to the green, so you've got to, certainly you can get over these first bunkers here, so probably something about a 7-iron, 6 or 7-iron, maybe a 7-iron for safety.
Okay.
Make sure you can get down and through it. Remember, from this type of lie too, when the ball hits the ground, it tends to run quite a bit. We get what we call a flyer, okay, and it'll also tend to shoot out just a little bit more, so you'll probably get a fair amount of distance anyway.
Okay.
Okay, so for this particular shot, I want you to open the face slightly, okay, and I want you to pick the club up pretty quickly and make sure that you really feel that your left hand is leading the club head, okay? Make sure the club head does not pass the hands. So it won't be a very long follow-through either. It'll be a fairly punchy, choppy type of swing.
Okay.
All right, so put a fraction more weight on your left side as well. Good. Now you advance that ball nicely down the fairway, and that's about all you can hope for. Hopefully you can have a chip and a putt.
All right.
Or a pitch and a putt. Okay, now here's our desperate lie here. You can hardly see the ball. Lucky to find this one. Now this one, you're just going to have to take your medicine and take the heaviest club that you've got, in other words, with the greatest amount of loft, a sand wedge, and really just pitch it back out onto the fairway.
Okay.
You don't want to get too brave here. All right. Yeah, you can see it. Make sure it's your ball. That's a good tip too.
I think it's mine.
All right.
Need binoculars to tell.
All right. Now, make sure you lean left. Once again, pick the club up very sharply and then hit down on it.
Blade open or blade?
Blade a little open, yes.
Okay.
You want to feel like you're cutting it very slightly, cutting across it. Good. Good. So, in this case, you're really trying to take the shortest route to the fairway. All right, so there you have 3 rough lies. Hopefully you'll keep them on the fairway, but sometimes you land up here. Do you want to learn to score well? Well, when you get those pitching clubs, like a pitching wedge or a sand wedge in your hand, you've got to learn to get the ball close to the hole. That'll really save you a number of shots. So I've got 3 great tips to show you how to do that.
Pretty good, Dave.
Yeah, not too bad. I worked hard at that as a kid, and I think I developed a pretty good short game. And obviously pitching, that's a big part of the game, and you guys on the tour are really great at this. And the big key, obviously, is distance control, and that's the big fault that I see with many amateurs, or even good amateurs, or even some of the tour players that really don't have the distance control necessary to get the ball close and up and down it from, say, 60 yards and in.
Not only do you have to have a good method, but you really have to practice this a lot.
That's right, and I don't see people practicing this shot nearly enough. And the technique is not so difficult. I mean, it's pretty similar to the big swing. There's some subtle adjustments which we'll go into, but the major feature is learning to control your distance.
Right, and a couple of things that I do which might help the viewers is that, in there, as you say, there are some minor changes, but really a few things that I do is I normally just choke down on the club a little bit.
Give you a bit more control.
Right, give me a little. I'm not looking for distance here, as you say. I'm looking to control the distance. I'm not trying to hit the ball a long way. Choke down a little bit on it. I'm going to stand a little narrower and a little more open than I would normally on a wedge shot, say a full wedge shot. Yeah. And then one of the things I'm going to do is I'm trying to control the speed of the club head with my upper body. I don't have to hit it too far, and I don't want to use my lower body, my legs and my hips too much. It's just there for support. That's why I'm standing as narrow as I am. Just going to use the shoulders and the arms and let the club head swing nice and freely.
How about your grip pressure and weight distribution?
Well, on this shot, David, I'll probably just hold the club a little lighter than I normally would, just to keep it nice and smooth and so I don't get too jerky on it. And with my weight distribution, I'll probably have a little more weight on the left side, probably about 60-40. Again, I'm not trying to get a big turn or anything. I'm just trying to control the distance that I'm going to hit it.
Okay. Right, so we've got a 60-yarder here. Go ahead and hit a shot. Oh, you just got inside me there.
That's $1 to me, huh?
That's it. So listen, just make a swing, say, for a 45-yarder.
Okay, so on my 60, I'd be back in here. On my 40-yarder, I'm just going to be a little shorter, but much the same kind of swing, a little softer.
A little softer motion with your body. In fact,
Right.
well, let's go up and hit a couple of those shorter shots.
Okay.
You know, the whole key, really, when you get around the greens, to have the confidence so you can actually visualize the shot before you hit it. But having practiced enough, you've got that feel. It's not something you have to think in terms of, oh, I've got to hit this hard or I've got to hit it soft.
Well, that's the whole idea, and it's a picture that you get from practicing. You know, you can't expect someone to go out there and haven't played for a while or something and expect to hit these kind of shots, which are really your premium shots on scoring. Just make it, you can hit the ball quite badly, but if you're good in this area, you're going to turn a bad score into a good score.
I know you use a 60-degree wedge. This is very popular amongst the tour players now, the third wedge, as it's called.
Okay, you can see with the 60 that I've tried to get the same amount of bounce as I do with the 56 here.
Right, so you can pretty much make the same swing as you were back there with a 60-yarder from here, and the ball's not going to go as far, obviously, with a 60-degree more loft on it.
That's right, it's going to stop a lot quicker too.
Much softer flight.
I would say you're probably going to make the same swing that you did from 60 yards with the 56-degree sand wedge.
The same principles apply that I used on the 60-yard shot here. I'm going to choke down a little bit, nice and light grip pressure, stand a little open, not 2 feet about, 6-8 inches apart, nice and relaxed with the forearms. And then one thing I'm going to try and do, Dave, is just take it back nice and low and smooth. Any kind of jerky motion that you have early on here will lead to either stubbing the chip or hitting it thin.
There's a very shallow divot. I mean, you really just clip it, aren't you? You're not really taking much of a divot.
Any time that the club digs into the ground, it's going to slow the club head down, and that's going to make it harder for you to control your distances.
Right.
All right, let's see if we can get another one close here. Well, there's a spin.
I recall when you broke the course record at Augusta a few years ago and shot 63, that you were pretty successful with your wedge, weren't you?
Really strange day for me, because normally I hit all the par 5s in 2, or most of them at Augusta in 2, and that day I didn't hit one of them. And the strength of my game was from this distance in. So that goes to show you don't have to hit the ball great all the time if you work hard from this distance.
Right, and we have to add that, so you birdied all 4 of the par 5s, so not necessary to hit every par 5 and 2 at Augusta too.
Not if you use these clubs well.
All right, well, let's go up to the shorter one, the 30-yarder, shall we?
The only variation I have on this distance shot opposed to the other two, Dave, is that I come down the grip a little bit more.
Okay, this is for control, obviously.
Control, and also I'm going to slow my shoulders down a little bit. I obviously don't want to hit it as hard as the other shots. There's a little more finesse involved here.
But you're still, to all intents and purposes, making the same swing, just turning your chest through the shot.
Absolutely.
Okay, come on, I think we should play for lunch here, Nick. Come on, we haven't had any competition since we were juniors, so let's go for it.
Well, I can remember having a few lunches with you in the past, Dave, so... Okay, just nice and smooth. There you go.
You must be hungry.
That could be good for a hamburger or two.
Just remember, I haven't had a lot of practice, huh?
No excuses, please. One thing you've got to remember, Dave, is you've got to hit the 60 degree a little harder than you would normally the 56 degree.
Yeah, it just takes a little getting used to, doesn't it, the 60?
Oh, well,
that's close.
Don't feel too bad. You haven't practiced as much as I have recently.
Okay.
I'll have a nice bottle of champagne or something with that sandwich.
Isn't it amazing when you watch the pros on TV how good they are with their pitch shots? They seem to stick the ball close to the hole every time. The key is distance control. Now I'm going to show you how to get distance control. I've got 2 shots here, one of 60 yards and one of 40 yards. And with very similar swings, you'll learn to hit the ball different distances. What I see many amateurs do is that they tend to have a long swing and then decelerate. You have to learn to accelerate through every shot. Now, on this 60-yard shot, what I want you to imagine is this. Think in terms of turning your body at 60 miles an hour. What this will do is control this club head speed through impact. So, 60 miles an hour should produce a 60-yard shot. 40 miles an hour should produce a 40-yard shot, and so on. So now, in setting up to the ball, put the ball about in the middle of your stance, a little more weight left and hands ahead, and your feet should be just a little bit open to allow you to get through towards the hole. Now, think in terms of 60 miles an hour. What this will do will control the length of your backswing. So 60 miles an hour will send the club back a little further than, say, a 40-mile-an-hour swing. But this speed, as long as you keep the same tempo, will produce the different shots. So let's see here. Here's a 60 miles an hour swing. And now we'll walk up and play the 40-yard shot. Now what I'm going to try to do here is to maintain the same tempo, but now in terms of the 40-yard shot, I'm going to move my body at 40 miles an hour. And you'll watch, the club won't go back quite as far, but keep that same tempo. So remember, 40 yards, 40 miles an hour.
So remember, control the length of your swing with the speed of your turn. And controlling the length of the swing and the speed of your turn will control your distance. So 60 yards, 60 miles an hour, 40 yards, 40 miles an hour, and so on. Work on those speeds. Your distance control will be great. Now, if you want to really get good at this game and cut lots of shots off your score, you want to get good around the greens. From 40 yards and in is an important area. Many golfers don't have the sensitivity or feel to hit shots certain distance. They don't know how hard to hit the ball. Now, I've developed a little game, a little drill, which can really help you to do this. Now, what I've done, I've got a stretch of turf, 40 yards in distance, and I've laid a towel out at 10 yards and my umbrella at 40. Now, the idea with this game is to make sure that the first ball finishes just past the towel, then progressively hit each ball a little further. As soon as you hit one shorter than the previous shot, then you're out of the game. So the key is to see how many balls you can get between the towel and the umbrella. So let's have a go. So the first one should just finish just the other side of the towel. All right, that's pretty good. Now, to develop my feel, I've got to obviously hit the ball just a little harder, which means I'm going to swing the club back a little longer for each one, but I must make sure that the ball finishes just past the previous one. It's amazing the feel that you'll start to develop. You'll know how far and how hard to hit, say, a 10, 15, 20, 30-yard shot and so on. And it's a lot of fun if you do it with a friend, because then you can challenge each other, have little matches, maybe have a little money on it, and that's the way to practice a short game. So keep practicing these shots. Work with this drill. It's something you can just go down the side of your practice area and work on. As long as you've got 40 yards, pretty much a flat area, it's an easy drill to work on. This delicate shot out of the bunker is not nearly as difficult as it appears. Let me help you take the fear out of bunker play. Watch these tips. Bunker shot can be problematical for golfers at the best of times, and none more so than the short little shot here. This is a tricky one because I've only got a few feet to actually get out of the bunker and a few feet to run to the pin. Now the problem here is that obviously we want to accelerate the club through the sand, but at the same time we don't want the ball to go too far. The sort of thing we see is this. Golfers set up to it and have a very short, jerky swing, trying not to hit the ball too far, and as a result, a lot of times don't even get out of the bunker. So what we have to learn to do is have what I term controlled aggression. We want a fairly long swing, and yet we only want the ball to go a short distance. Well, how do we do this? Well, I'm going to show you right now. First of all, what you want to do is to set yourself a little bit more open than you would for a normal bunker shot. So on a very short one, set yourself at least 45 degrees open, where on a regular bunker shot you'll probably be only about 30 degrees. Keep the ball forward in your stance. Now the big key is once taking your grip here, make sure your right hand is well on top, what we term a weak position. Feel like the V form between your thumb and first finger looking almost at your left shoulder. This will help to keep the club face open through the shot. And the more open it is, the more aggressive you can actually be. If it closes, you can't be aggressive and you'll probably hit a poor shot. Now, the big key here is rhythm. And you need to make sure that you have a fairly long swing. Too short a swing, you lose rhythm and you jerk at the ball. So have a fairly long swing and you control the amount of acceleration by the length of your follow-through. So you have a fairly long backswing and a fairly short follow-through. Now with a little practice, you'll see how you can actually accelerate the club through. The ball will come out very softly and not run very far. So let's see how we do it. So 45 degrees, ball forward, a weak right hand right on top. Now the face is fairly well open and I make a fairly long, lazy swing with a fairly short follow-through. Now, that's the way you see the pros play it. It's a fairly long swing, very rhythmical, and yet the ball only goes a short distance. So remember, you can trust this if you go back far enough. If you go back too short, you have to jerk through the ball. So let's try that once more. So, right hand right on top, and a fairly long swing, and a short follow through. Now with a little bit of practice, you can be good at these short bunker shots too. Now don't worry, I'm not missing the ball. I'm only practicing hitting the sand. What I'm trying to do is actually hear the club bounce into the sand correctly. And that's really important. I've always maintained that you can hear a good bunker shot. Now, if the club enters the sand correctly, and the back of the club enters the sand first, in other words, we use the bounce of the club correctly, you're going to hear a certain splashing sound. Now many golfers, if you listen to this sound, this is what we hear. Thud, because they're sticking the leading edge into the sand, and that doesn't keep the club head accelerating through. On the other hand, we also hear this. No sound at all, basically, because they're not making contact with the sand at all. So the fact is, you've got to learn to get the club entering the sand at the right angle. Now, just practicing hitting the sand is a great drill. So simply making your swings, hearing that splashing sound, taking a fairly long divot, swinging it nice and smoothly will really help you to get the ball out onto the green very easily. So instead of focusing purely on mechanics, what you're doing is using your auditory sense in order to help you to get the ball out onto the green. Now obviously you can only do this in the practice bunker. You're not allowed to do this on the golf course, but it's a great way of feeling the right contact with the sand, which I believe is so important. So the less sand you take, the better. You want a nice shallow divot, a nice clip there, it's like you're spanking the sand. If you can do that and achieve that sound when the ball's there, I'm sure you're going to find you hit a lot of good bunker shots. So let's see if we do here. So now I've got that sound in my mind. Okay, off we go. There you go. So I've got the same sound. If I can do that, I'm going to hit good bunker shots. Practice makes perfect. Now I've hit a pretty good shot to get to this point, and in order to save my par, I've got to learn to chip well. Now I'm going to give you a couple of super tips to improve your chipping. As they say, practice makes perfect, and that is very true for these little chip shots around the green. Now let me define a chip shot. A chip shot is one where the ball bounces onto the green and rolls a fairly substantial distance. In other words, it'll roll more than it will carry. And when you get close to the green, if ever you have the opportunity of doing that, make sure you play a chip shot rather than a lofted shot. You almost want to picture that you're tossing a ball. Okay, if I was going to visualize this shot, I'd take the ball in my right hand and I'd do this. Now, as close as I can get to that technique, the better. So it's very much a case of swinging the club like a pendulum. And I'm going to give you a couple of ideas how to get really good at chipping. Now, first of all, probably select two clubs that you would normally chip with. I'm using a 7-iron here for a fairly lengthy chip. As I get closer to the green, a shorter chip, I'm probably going to use a 9-iron. So if you use a 7-iron and a 9-iron, that's not bad. That's pretty good. You might use an 8 or a 6, but I would suggest for most players a 7-iron and a 9-iron. Now, what you want to do, you want to grip all the way down almost to the metal, right at the end of the grip. You want to have your feet fairly close together, just a few inches apart.
Maybe the left foot pulled back just a touch. You can see here, just pulled back just a little bit. And then, with the ball opposite my right toe almost, have a little bit more weight favoring the left side. Now, the trick here is to make sure that you don't use any wrists. People have problems where they flip their wrists in this fashion here. They try to scoop the ball. The firmer your wrists are, the better. The more like a pendulum, the better. So this left hand always stays firm. You never want to see your left hand breaking down, as we term it. So what I like to think of is taking this triangle formed by my arms and my shoulders, moving it back and through. So if you think in terms of triangle back, triangle through, pretty much on a straight line, you will find with a little bit of rhythm, remember, rhythm and smoothness are very important in these shots. Swing it back and through, make sure that left hand stays nice and firm. So, straight back and straight through, swing the triangle, and make sure you really watch the ball. That's key. A lot of players miss these shots, or miss-hit these shots, because they move their head too early. So keep your eyes focused on the ball. Now, we set up to it, we picture the shot once again. Notice how keen I am on you, trying to picture that shot the whole time. Get a positive picture in your mind of what you're about to do, and then get over the shot, swing the triangle back, swing the triangle through. Pretty good. Well, how's your chipping from just off the edge of the green? If you're like many golfers I see, you've probably got a problem. The fact is, this is a relatively simple shot. All I'm trying to do is bump the ball onto the putting surface and let it trundle up to the hole. Now, many golfers, what happens is they try to lift the ball in the air. They constantly try to help it in the air. They take a lofted club like a wedge, which I have here, and then they try to apply some loft to the ball. You've got to let the club do the work. So the key is learning to have a good angle onto the ball, where when you hit it, your hands are nice and firm. You want to keep the wrists out of this little shot. Now, here's a surefire drill to help you. We call it the 1 foot drill, and it's been very successful even for good players. And you can use this one on the golf course very easily. Now, what you do is you position the ball off your right foot. You stand a little bit open. Now, what you want to do is lift your right heel well off the ground. Now, what this does, it puts your hands forward and your weight forward, and you can see my shirt buttons are ahead of the ball. Many golfers who scoop it set up to it where they're behind the ball and lift it like so. Now, if you're in this position, what's going to happen is that your hands are going to be ahead of the club head as you make contact with the ball, which is absolutely vital. It also helps you to get the right angle onto the ball. You see, with me leaning ahead, it allows the club to go up slightly and down slightly. So it's a slightly descending angle. Very, very important. So all we do, set up to it, right foot off the ground, feel all the weight, or predominantly all the weight on the left side, and then from here, make a nice, short, crisp stroke. And there we go. Give this drill a try. It's guaranteed. Well, we've worked on the swing. We've been out on the golf course. Now we have to learn how to hold those all-important putts. And I've got 3 great drills for you. The walk-up drill, the triangle drill, and the bottle drill. Let's see how they work. Isn't it maddening when you're out on the golf course and you've got a short putt, might mean something in match play or something like that, and you step up to the ball and you're grinding over it and sweating and trying to be very precise. You feel tight, you feel tense, and you make this jerky stroke, and surprise, surprise, you miss it. Then without thinking about it, you just pull the ball back almost in disgust, step up to it, and knock it in. Now, why is that? Why is it so much easier the second time? Well, the fact is, I didn't take any time, I wasn't tight, I was more relaxed, and that's very important in good putting. You've got to be relaxed, you've got to have flow, you've got to have rhythm. You don't want to take a long time over the putt, otherwise you've got a good chance of missing it. That's why people develop the yips. They get tight, they get tense. Now I've devised a little drill here to help you with your rhythm, and we call it the walk-up drill. What I've done, I've laid 6 balls down on the green in a semicircle, about a foot apart and about 2.5 feet or so away from the hole. Then what I'm going to attempt to do is to walk up to each putt and knock them in without really thinking about it. So keeping the putter in motion. So I'm constantly moving. So I'm not tight, I'm not tense. So let's see how I do. Now, just as simple as that. I wasn't tight, I wasn't tense. Now, you can practice this on the putting green, and the key is, when you're over the putt, you don't want to stand over it for any length of time. You want to be relaxed. You want to be in motion. Don't take too long. Have one look and knock it in. So next time you're out there, try that. Relax, one look, knock it in. No problem. Simply put, if you want to shoot lower scores, learn to putt better. Saving strokes on the greens can really help you as far as your score is concerned. You know, during a round of golf, if you 3-putt, or if you miss a 10-footer, or rim it out, or miss a 2 or 3-footer, you tend to forget those. What one tends to remember is the out of bounds and the shots that go in the water. But you know, at the end of a round, they all add up, and you could certainly shoot a lot lower if you could putt well. Now, to learn to putt well and consistently, if you watch the top players, their hands, arms and shoulders all work together. What I see with many amateurs is they just use their hands and arms, and as a result there's no consistency in direction or distance. So they look something like this. So we can see really the hands and arms are controlling the stroke. What I want you to do is to learn to control the stroke with the big muscles, in other words the chest and the shoulders. Get this whole triangle formed by my arms and chest and shoulders working together. This motion here will produce consistency because you're controlling it with the shoulders. When you control it with the shoulders, the path is consistent and the pace is consistent. So do this. Stand upright with your arms almost extended, and then bend your elbows to form an equilateral triangle. Now, just bend forward slightly from the waist and feel a little pressure under your arms, so your arms are resting on your chest. This helps to control the direction that the putter swings in. So you can see everything's connected and working together. Now, when you get over the putt, what you want to think in terms of is 1, 2. 1, the right shoulder moving back. 2, the left shoulder moving through on the follow through. So if you get that 1, 2 motion and keep this triangle working together and keep your head still, you'll find that the putter will move through on a consistent path, and all then you have to worry about is the pace. So let's see how we do. So get that triangle working. And you can see everything's working together. We see so many players who finish like this, and that's because they're using their hands and arms independently. So once more, get your eyes pretty much on top of the ball and get those arms and shoulders working together as a unit. Just as simple as that. Now, control your stroke with your triangle and watch those scores come tumbling down. Now for this drill you're going to need a prop. You need a little empty plastic water bottle. And basically what it's going to help you to do is develop a sound mechanical putting stroke. I see many golfers, when they take the putter back, they either take it back too far, or otherwise the putter goes outside the line or inside the line, or it wobbles. There's just no consistency in the stroke. And that's very important if you want to be a good putter. So now all you've got to do is take this bottle, stick it under your arm, and keep some pressure on your chest, and make sure as you swing back that you maintain that pressure. What will happen, it really makes your shoulders, arms and chest work together. It also guides the stroke. It doesn't let it move out or in too far. It allows it to go fairly straight back and through. And this is really what we're after. This is something you want to practice on the putting green, practice on the carpet at home, and if you do it regularly, I'll tell you what, you'll find that your putting stroke will really improve. So, get yourself a little bottle, stick it under your arm, work on different length putts, and get your arms and shoulders and chest all working together. And see those putts start dropping.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the very best of my tips from the last 7 years. There should be no excuses now for you not to go out and play great golf. Just remember, don't try them all at once. The other point I want to make, remember when you're working and practicing on your game, make it fun. That's the reason you took up the game in the first place. So until next time, goodbye.